Hello everybody, Stephen here with Cardboard Coalition. And this is the second part to the How to Play for Tiny Epic Dungeons by Gamelyn Games, created by Scott Alms. This is a 4 to 5 player game. It takes 30 to 60 minutes and it's for ages 14 plus. Yes, it does say that there, it's just really tight, or really small. The reason I show you guys this box is to show you that everything that comes in this small box. It's a big game for a small box. It really is. And so this is the second part. If you guys want, you can check the video of the first part where I went over how to play, or how to set up the game. Sorry, I went over how to set up the game because there's a lot involved. And also in how to play, it's simple, but there's a lot going on. So it makes it kind of hard to explain. So we got these reference cards that give us a lot of iconography. Words are failing me now. Iconography to look at. But then there's also inside the rule book even more. So if you need an even more in-depth look, here's more reference for all the iconography that's in this game. But what we're going to go over is we're going to go over the very basic rules, and then we'll leave looking up the iconography and stuff like that to you. I will be going over what you see on the hero cards, on the torch mat, on the boss mat, on both sides, on Act 1 and 2, and we'll go over that on both of them. Also, on the goblin cards, the minion cards, we'll look at some of the spell cards and the loot cards, as well as some of the tiles. So we will go over that, but trust me, it's going to seem maybe like I'm talking about a lot, but it's going to be the basic stuff that's going on. So let's start off with a hero card. Let's go ahead and grab a hero card to look at so we can kind of set it up. We've already set the game up, and we have picked the first player, which is down here, and we're all ready to go. And you could see all that in the first video. But let's go ahead and look at what the player mats show us. It gives us the name. It gives us the grouping I guess they're in, like she's an elf sorceress, Etherna, right? This is her movement. This is her defense. This is how many dice she rolls when she does a skill check for strength. I'm going to say speed. I know I'm messing it up. Where's our little reference guide when we need it? Strength, agility, and then intellect. So what this shows you is how many dice will be rolled if you're rolling a skill check on those. So in this example, strength, you get 1. Agility, you get 2. And I forgot it again because I want to say magic. Intellect, you roll 3. See, these come in handy. Then what you have over here are some actions that everybody can do. So this symbol, the star right above my thumb, the star in the orange kind of upside down tombstone, or however you want to letter tombstone, right? That means a free action. So for free action, you could spend 2, oh man, I got to pull this back up again because now I forget the name of it. Oh, I always want to call it power, but it's not power. It is, God, now I'm going through everything. Way to fail in the teaching, Stephen. Just because I want to make sure I tell you guys the right thing. Focus. See, it's focus. Lightning bolt does not remind me of focus. Lightning bolt reminds me of like, holy crap, it's lightning. But anyways, so back to this. So this is a free action. It's saying if you spend 2 focus points, right, you can move 1 die. You could take a die and you can move it either up 1 or down 1. So up 1 would be up to 2, right? And if it was at 1, down 1 would bring it down. Well, you can't go down from 1. So you can either move it up or down. So let's go with the example of having a 2. You can move it up to a 3, or you can move it down to a 1. So that's what that does for every 2 focus that you spend. Down here, this is a heroic action with the blue, with the white inside, and it shows all the Z's. That means rest. If you rest, you can get 3 health and up to 5 focus. You can never go past your max health or focus. All right. Then over here, this is their special ability. That symbol means magic, right? This means 4 room tiles away in any direction instead of line of sight. There's things like that. And it says you have to roll at least a 5. And by looking at that, it tells you it's your intellect. So To cast a spell, you use intellect. So in this case, you'd be able to roll 3 dice, and you'd have to get a 5 or better. Down here, it tells you what happens if she succeeds. That check mark means if you succeed, she'll get 2. If she succeeds, she can spend 2 focus to take 1 damage, to do 1 damage to a monster. So she rolls the intellect. To cast a spell, she rolls the intellect. If she gets a 5, she can go 4 spots away in any direction. She can spend 2 focus, which will allow her to do 1 damage. All right. Now, down here on the bottom, you have the 2 little hands. Down here, you can put weapons and stuff in there. They'll also have those symbols, right? But at the basic setup right now, if she rolls any strength, it's -1 from that roll. Then over here, she can research. So for a free action, she can spend 4 focus and get a free spell. Let's see if I grab a weapon right off the bat. I did, and that helps. So let's say I loot something, I get a loot. I can put it here or I can put it here, right? It shows that hand symbol that lets you know. You could think left hand, right hand. And then there are also armor and stuff and cloaks that can go over to the right. And only one can go over there. Oh, see, look, that worked out perfect. And I actually didn't even think about setting this up. So see, because it has like the shirt, that means this is something that you can wear. So you can have one in your right hand, or one in your left hand, one in your right hand. You can wear something. So that shows you, that kind of gives you an idea of where things go, and you kind of place them there. And up here, what it's telling you is you can only have 2 magic, 2 spells, up to 2 spells, right? And that means up to 2 trinkets. Let's see how lucky we're going to get here. Do we get a trinket? No, we got another thing. How many do we have to go through for a trinket? There's lots of things to wear. Oh, all right. So let's set this down. Let's just look for a trinket really quick. There we go. Put that on top. All right. So there's the trinket, and you can tell by that symbol, the little necklace. So you can have at least 2 of these on your character. And you can have 2 spells. If you flip the spells over, they're a different color, but they also have that the stars that let you know. So that's what your hero card tells you. I'm just setting these in the discard pile if you guys didn't watch the first video, the setup. So there's your hero card. So now that we know basically what we're looking at their hero card, I feel like we should go over the torch mat, and then we'll talk about kind of the movement and stuff. So here's the torch mat. And if you want to know why these things are where they're at and how they're set up, go ahead and watch the first video, which is the setup, which will give you all that information. So what we're looking at here on the torch mat is we have a spot for all 4 of the goblins, and they're numbered. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then we have an area for minions. And over here, what that symbol means is if the hero succeeds by beating the minion, right? If the hero succeeds, or the hero action can do. So that's for hero. Let's say for hero, beat a minion. Hopefully you guys can see the red line going through the minion. Now I can't think of it. The torch, I was going to call it a lamp. The torch gets to go up 6 spots. And the hero gets to have 1 loot or magic, or loot or spell, and then a second loot or spell. So basically they're going to have 2 loot, 2 spell, 1 loot, 1 spell. You get the point. But it tells you what happens if you defeat. And that's the same thing for any minion. All right. Then what we have on here, let's go look at this track as it goes down. You move from left to right, right to left. You kind of just follow it down, right? And there's symbols. So what this is telling you is you put the torch there. It's just saying that's where the torch goes. But you want to know how many players. So hopefully you guys can see that. There's a little gray helmet back there. So 4 players go there, 3 players goes there, 2 players go there. And any time when the torch would go up, you could never go past the amount of players. So if we had a 2-player game, let's say we're right here, we defeat a minion, we can't go past where we're at. Now another thing to keep in mind, when you defeat a minion, let's say we're right here, and we go up 6, 1, 2, 3, but we can only go up 4, it puts us right there. We do not do that action. Just keep that in mind. when you're bumping up the torch, making it go higher, giving you more time, you don't do the action that the torch lands on. But if it comes back down and passes any of this stuff, you do those things again. So torch goes up good, green, don't do the action. Torch goes down, red, bad, do the action. So let's go through the actions it's telling you to do. This means put a goblin at the entrance. So this is the entrance. You could see the little symbol there. So if we were to get that, we would take the one goblin and we'd set that goblin there in the entrance. And then you would flip a card over and you would put that card above that goblin spot, right? And we'll talk about these cards here in a second. Let's just go through this. So that means put a goblin in the start space. Entrance. They call it the entrance. I can say entrance. Entrance. I can do it. So that means put a goblin in the entrance. That means enemy action. That means all enemies, right? That counts for goblins. That counts for minions. And then we'll talk about, and here in a minute, you flip it over to Act 2, and it also means the boss, right? So that means enemy action. So all enemies will act. All right, so then what we have here, you can also, as a hero, as a free action, you can cause the torch to go down one more on the track to be able to look at 4 rooms. So you can flip 4 rooms, right? Because some rooms have traps, and if you go in there, well, traps you can get through, but if you go in there as a goblin, you instantly get hit. But we'll show that in a minute too. All right. And then what this is reminding us here is about one of the lose conditions. So if you already have 4 of these goblins already out on the board and you're supposed to bring out a 5th goblin, you lose the game. That's one of the lose conditions. All right, so that's the Act 1 side of the torch mat. And we'll jump into the Act 2 side. Let's go ahead and throw these down here. And as you guys can see, I have it set up so it's tight, but there's room. So you could put a card down when you flip a card, right? I know it's tight, but there's room so you can put the card down. And this is so you can keep track, right? So you know that the number 1 goblin is the stabby goblin. All right, now let's go ahead and look at these enemy cards and see what they do. So when you go somewhere, either the torch mat tells you put out a goblin or you go into a room that brings out a goblin, you will flip one of these cards, right? And then you read over the card, and I'll give you an example of how that works here in a second. But so what this tells us is the name of them. There's the stabby goblin. They have a movement of 4. Stabby goblins have a defense of 4. And what that means is, and we'll get into attack in a second, when their counterattack is +1 against swords, against, well, melee, ranged, I'll have to look these up again, and spell, right? And then right here, that means the hero, if they kill the goblin, they can either get 1 loot card or go up 3 health. Now down here, remember as I showed you on the torch mat, that means enemy action. What this is telling you is either the goblin moves, right, or they attack people in that area. And if they attack people in that area, it is -1 health for every goblin that's out in the dungeon. So if there's 1 goblin in the dungeon, they do 1 damage. If there's 4 goblins in the dungeon, they do 4 damage. 3, 2, all the same things. So that's how you read the goblin cards. There's a little discard area for the goblin cards. And we can go ahead and look at the minion cards too. Certain things will bring out the minions. So this one, we've got the ogre, right? We got the name right there. He's got a movement of 4. He's got a defense of 4. If he's attacked by melee, he gets a +2 on his counterattack. The enemy always get counterattacks. And he has +2 for his defense. So if you try to melee him, it's +2 for his counterattack, and he gets +2 defense. So if you try to melee him, his defense is a 7. So you have to get higher than a 7, and then you get the difference. But we'll talk about that in a second too when we do attacks. All right, so then it says if it's a ranged attack or spells, and I really want to look that up really quick, he gets +2 and a counterattack. So whenever you don't kill a goblin, they only have 1 health. You don't kill a goblin or you don't kill a minion, they get to counterattack you. And that's what those pluses right there mean. And then it depends on what attack you used. And then down here, just like the goblin, we have the enemy action. The ogre moves and attacks for -2. When they do the enemy action, there's no blocking an enemy action. You can't roll defense. You can't look at your defense. They just hit you for that much, right? And when and I'll show you guys this in a second too, but when a minion comes out, they kind of sit down right there. And then of course you have a little discard pile for, oh, I forgot something on it. You have a discard pile for minions, but down the side right here, you also have their health track. They start at the highest, and then you have to get them past 1 to 0 health to get rid of them. And that's why we have these little health markers here that go on the card. Oop, and I'm throwing it everywhere. That you can set right there on the card and move it down as you take health from them. And then once you beat one of the minions, you go ahead and put that heart right here. That's how you unlock the boss and go into Act 2, but we'll talk about that soon. We will talk about that in a minute. So let's go ahead and put him in the discard. All right, so that gives you an idea of some of the cards. I guess I can show you the boss card right now. This is on Act 1 side. The door for the boss doesn't unlock. It lets you know right here. Once you, for a free action, right, you can open up the boss door, but you have to have beaten all the minions and you have to have found the boss's lair, right? So that's what this is showing you. So to win the game, you have to beat the boss. Now, to lose the game, there's a couple things you can do. You can have the minions out, and if you get a 5th minion, which it tells you right here, 5 minions means death, that means you lose the game, right? The other way that you can lose the game is if the torch mat on either side, so you see right here, there's the skull. I guess I should have told you guys that as I walk through it. Let's see, let's push it all back, and we'll try to get it up close so you guys can see it. I forgot one thing on there. That means death. Skulls mean death. So if your torch gets all the way down to the skull in Act 1 or Act 2, that means death. So running out of minions, or having a 5th having a 5th goblin come out, right, means that you lose the game. If the torch ever makes it down to the skull, you lose the game. These ways to lose the game, all these ways to lose the game, right? All right. So the other thing that goes on with this is if you do not find, well, that's the skull getting down to here. If you get down here and you haven't found the lair for the boss, you're going to lose the game. But that's because it goes down there. I was just thinking that through my head. Sorry. All right. Now, let's go ahead and go through the actions that you get when you play. So on a hero's turn, they have 3 actions that they can do. And you can do those actions in any order, right? You can move, you can perform a hero action, and you can perform a free action. Remember I showed you guys this mark right here is a free action. These blue ones mean hero action. So you can move, you could do one of these blue things, or you can do a free action. Now, when you move, there's certain things that stop you from moving. If you run into an enemy, that stops your movement. And you can't split the movement. You can't run into an enemy, right, in the movement, kill the enemy with the hero action, and then continue moving. If you run into any kind of enemy, it stops your movement. Then you can do a hero action or a free action. Then it's the next person's turn. Now, while moving, you can do a free action. It does not stop your movement. You can keep moving, right? So movement stops if you run into an enemy. If you perform a free action, you can keep moving. So there are some attacks that I think you can do for free actions. I've played this a handful of times, and I'm trying to remember as I'm talking. I think there's some attacks that you can do as free action. You can heal as free action. There's teleporting you can do as free action, but we'll get into some of that. All right. So let's go ahead and jump into the hero actions, right? So there are multiple hero actions you can do. We talked about one, which is rest, right? Another hero action you can do is you can search a room, right? And so in these cards, they'll show you things like search a room, and we'll talk about how to do that when we flip cards. The other thing you can do is you can disarm a trap. You can find a trap in here. You can disarm it. You can also cast a spell. That's a hero action. And then you can attack. And you have melee. I knew it wasn't ranged. Missile. They have to make it different. Melee, missile, and spells, right? And so you might say, wait a minute, you just said spell. There are spells to heal and there are spells to attack. If you use a spell to heal, it's considered a hero action. If you attack in any way, it's considered a hero action, unless there's a free action that you can do, things like that. All right, so let's go back over it really quick. The hero actions that you can do are rest, search a room, disarm a trap, cast a spell, or attack. And under attack, you have melee attack, missile attack, which is your range attack, and spell attack. All right, so there's that. And then the free actions vary in what you can do and things like that. Now I figured I have this set up. I figured I'll show you guys a couple of things. I'm still trying to keep this video fairly short, but we'll see how we do it. So let's go ahead and take our first player, which is, what's her name? Etherina? Let's go ahead and make her, she's going to move first. So she's going to move into this room. So she moves into it, and there's a couple things that we have to keep in mind. First thing is, well, we found a trap. First thing is you want to line up the doors. So right here's the only way we can line it up, because there is the pathway and pathway. Now she's coming here. She didn't know that it was a trap. So she has a trap symbol. So let's go ahead and show you this. This symbol means trap. This says you can roll any dice and you have to get a 7. If you don't do it, -2 health. If you do evade the trap, nothing happens. If you do pass, nothing happens. But if you fail, it's -2 health. So let's go ahead and see if we can get her through that trap. So we're going to go ahead and do, we're going to do a check, right? I know there's a name for it, and if you guys are hardcore D&D fans, you're like, oh, it's the blah, 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 blah check, right? Skill check. I was glancing it up really quick, the skill check. So you have to do a skill check, but I can pick anything. So I'm going to look at her card, and intellect gives me 3 dice. I'm going to go with 3 dice. So we roll the 3 dice, and whenever you do a skill check, you have to choose 1 die as your primary die. In this case, we're going to pick the 6. That doesn't give a 7, but on the dice, you have some plus symbols, right? And the plus symbol means you can add it to your rolled dice. So that would give us 7. With the trap, as long as you get 7, the trap doesn't affect you. You don't have to get higher, you just have to get at the number. All right, now we'll go ahead and run through these dice. So you have 6, you have a 5, 6 with a heart, you have a 5, right? Where is it? I can find it, I really can. You have a 4 with the lightning bolt. You have a 3 with the lightning bolt. You have a 2 plus 2 with 3 lightning bolts. And, oh, I thought that was the 1. A plus 1 with 2 lightning bolts. So what that means, like I said, if there's a plus, you can add it to the 1 die that you chose, right? Any dice you don't use in that check. So right now I couldn't use the 3 because it doesn't have a plus. If you remember, I can use 2 focus to bump this to a 2 if I wanted a higher roll, but for a trap, I don't need it. I could move it to that and then had added it. But let's go back to the 3 that we rolled. So these are for the skill check, this is what I'm gonna use, my primary die, and then this boosts it. So it gives us a 7, we make it past the trap. Now this 3, if I needed more focus, let's say my focus was down here somewhere, at the end of the check, a successful check, so I successfully passed the check, I can get 1 more focus. I can bump my focus up 1, but I can never go past my max focus. So that's how the dice roll when you do skill checks, right? And I'll show you, attacking is a skill check, but we'll talk about that here in a second. Now, the other thing that this card shows us is this is a trap that we can disarm. We have to use agility, and we have to get a 6 or higher. If we don't pass it, nothing happens. But if we do pass it, we can pick a loot or we can pick a spell. Right? Let's go ahead and move her down because if I get her a loot, I want to be able to put stuff there. So she's moving. She's going to go ahead and stop movement and do a heroic action. Right? So she is going to go ahead and try to roll a skill check to disarm that trap. So she needs to roll a 6. She can roll 2 dice, and she got a 6, right? And there's the 4. So your primary die would be the 6, which means that you pass the skill check. This is working out well for me. You get to put this down here. It means that the trap is no longer there. Sorry, I put it in the wrong spot. Sorry, guys. The trap is no longer there. No one else can try to disarm the trap because it's already been disarmed. These are the disarm trap tokens. So you kind of cover it right there. And she also gets to get a piece of armor, She gets loot or a spell. When it's colored in, you see the brown or the blue. That means you can either get a blind one from here, or you can pick something in the discard pile. Hopefully we'll get one, but there are some that are gray. Let's see if we can use this as an example. So here's the gray ones, right? So you'll have gray ones. If they're colored in, that means you can pick it up from the discard pile or from here. If they're gray, it just means you can pick up loot. So it means you can grab stuff from the discard pile. You can only pick from the discard pile. So for her, let's go ahead and just go with the new thing. Let's get wild here. So what'd she get? She got a spiked buckler. So on melee attacks, this gives us +1 whenever we're attacking with melee. Because remember, the enemy can counterattack. Gives us +1 defense and +1 to whatever our attack roll is. So I'm going to go ahead and put that right here, which covers up that -1 for the attack roll. So she's going to have that buckler for now. Not great, not horrible, but there you go. All right, so she can no longer move, right? And as you see, there's this path down here. That means that a card goes right here. I believe as soon as you flip the card over, you're supposed to put the extra cards out, and we'll do that with the next one. I kind of messed up. But because she moved and then she attacked, she did a heroic action, she can no longer move. Her movement's over. She can do a free action, right? Remember the little free action. So she can upgrade a die, which is move a die up 1 or down 1, which she doesn't want to do. She can spend the torch to go ahead and look at some rooms. And right now, those are the free actions that she has available to her. And more come as you open up the dungeon, you get more things. Now, her turn is over. What happens at the end of her turn is the torch goes down 1, right? And as I showed you, I guess I didn't say it, but any blank space, obviously you don't do anything. You only do things when there's icons there. So the play goes to the next person to the right. So let's go ahead and say it goes up here and then right. So it would go up here to someone else. I'm not going to be able to read their name until I lean in. And I'm still not going to say it. Winkelis? I hope I'm saying that right. So that would be right here. So they're going to go ahead and move. That is an altar token, which you would know or have you seen if you watched the first video. So what he is going to go ahead and do is they can go this way if they want. Right, let's see what their movement is. They can move up to 4, but we're going to explore rooms because we want to find these minions as fast as we can. So they're going to go in this room. So you go ahead and flip this over. And yes, I do have this set up. So he goes into this room. Now there's some things that go on. Let's go ahead and do this first. You do the 4 rooms. You set out the 4 rooms like this. All right, so there's 4 rooms. And then we're going to go ahead and read through this card and some of the things that we have to do. So this means that a minion gets put down there. But this down here, what it's saying is when you flip this card over, just when you flip the card over, when it's revealed, I think that means when it's revealed, the person in that room takes 1 damage. So you have to be in that room and you take 1 damage. Well, he revealed it by running into that room. So he would get 1 damage just for going into that room, right? And then we would also get a goblin in there. So we grab the number 1 goblin, we go ahead and set it in the room with them, and then we draw the card for the goblin, which we've gone over now, and we look at all the information for the goblin card. So now we know everything that goes on there. And we go ahead and set that down over the spot for the number 1 goblin that we put out, right? So the goblin's here. Now go ahead and move these off. One more thing to look at here is there's a heroic action which you can take, which you roll strength, and in his case he would roll 2 because he has 2 dice for strength. If you get 5 or better, oh, and that's what I was talking about, the gray ones. I did set this up pretty well. If you succeed, you can pick up a loot from the discard pile. That's what the gray ones mean. But because he's in the room by himself, he cannot do that heroic action. You can only do a search heroic action if there's more than one hero adventurer in the room. So if there were 2 people in there, he could do the search action instead of an attack action. But since he can't, he's going to attack. So this gives us a good chance to go through the attack. So what goes on now is it's a skill check, but now you add the enemy die into the skill check because you're attacking an enemy. You go ahead and do your roll. You roll them all out. We got 5, 5, 5, and a 4. Remember, we have to pick 1 die to use. So we go ahead and we look at Boomy Goblin. Boomy Goblin's defense is a 4, and he only has 1 health. So as long as you get over his defense, you kill him. So Boomy Goblin ends up dying. And then it tells us what our reward is for killing Boomy Goblin. So the reward would be 1 loot or 1 spell. And we can either take from the discard or fresh from the top, right? So you would take, if you beat it, we've beat him. All we had to do is use that one. We can get rid of the goblin, put him back here on the little mat. We can discard his goblin card, and we can choose one of those 2 things. Let's go wild again and just grab a piece of loot. So he got Claw the Panther. Now this is something that I want to point out because we have one here. There are sets. Down here, what this is saying is the set bonus, right? This is our chance, I guess, to look at the card. So at ranged attack, if you have 2 of the Panthers, you get +1 to any range attack. If you have 3 of the set of the Panther stuff, you get +2. If you have 4 of the set of the Panther stuff, you get +3 to your attack. So this also has, you can do attack with agility +1. All right. So you go ahead and you put that, sorry, that can't go there. Let's go to the right person. You can go ahead and put that right there, and he's ready to go. You can cover either of them if you want, but he also has that -1. So let's go ahead and cover that -1, right? So we have that claw. That's his loot that he gets. Now he can do a free action once again, but he can no longer move because he already decided to move, and he can no longer do another action. So he can't search the room because he already used his heroic action to attack. So he's just going to go ahead and stay. Then we get our next person here, Ulysses, I think. So let's see if I can do this right and remember where I put the card. So Ulysses is going to move. They're going to go into this room. And let's say they're going to search up here. I'm hoping this is what I'm looking for. And it is. All right, so we can orientate this card any way we want because all 4 sides have an entrance and exit. She goes up here. We're excited and yet very, very afraid because what just happened is we get a minion. All right, so let's go ahead and look at this really quick. When revealed, the person in the room loses 2 health, and you add a minion to that room. Seems weird, a minion to that room. So she would lose 1, 2 health, and then we would draw a minion card. We'd go ahead and set it right here. We would put a health marker on that minion, just like that. And then we would put out the minion. So it's a troglodyte is our minion. Oh, we forgot to move this down. Bad Steven. So this would actually go down to there because we have 3 people who have gone. Well, 2 people have gone. So it'd go right there. I'm bad about this. Resvon keeps me honest about this kind of stuff. Watch the torch, man. All right, anyways. So we get a minion. We pull out the card and we find the troglodyte, which I believe that is the troglodyte meeple. We go ahead and set them there. We've already given her damage. Now she could do a hero action and she can decide to attack. So we've already gone through that. So we're not going to go through all that because this video is already getting long and I'm trying to keep this as short and sweet as I can to help you guys. So let's go ahead and pretend like this minion gets beat. This minion has 7 health, so it would take a little bit for the minion to get beat. But once the minion gets beat, they go to the discard pile. Their heart goes over here, as we talked about before. Right? Boop-a-doop-boop-a-doop. Once we have 4 hearts, and it depends on how many, and I said this in the first half of how to play, the setup depends on how many players, but because we have 4 players, we go ahead and we have 4 hearts. Once these 4 hearts are set up, that means the door to the boss's lair can open. We just need to know where the boss's lair is, right? And so we're gonna do this for expediency so we can get into Act 2. So we're gonna go ahead and flip cards over. We already talked about all these actions. We'll pretend like they've gone through all this. Now this goes to kind of what I was showing you guys too. I can't put this card like that. I can put it like that. I can put it like that, right? It's the only ways that that card can go. All right, and then you flip this over. And that reminds me, there is a way, another way to lose the game, and that's if you can't build the dungeon any further. How can that happen? Bad luck with these cards getting blocked. If you can't build the dungeon anymore and you haven't found the boss's lair, game over, man. Right? So let's go ahead and flip this one over, and see, this one I can go any way I want to, except for that way. So we got those set up. Now I did set this up. I went ahead and I put the boss one at the bottom. If you watched the first video, you know it was shuffled in with 3 other cards, so you don't know where it's gonna pop up. But I put it in so we have it. So let's say we know where the boss is at. And this is just another reminder, your grid only goes 7, so you can only go 3 either way from the center spot. So we go ahead and we do that. Let's say this minion's gone. You get rid of that minion because we killed the minion. So what goes on now, and we're gonna get into the boss battling part of it. So everything moves to Act 2. You go ahead and take the board. If there are minions out, they go ahead and stay out, but you would go, and their cards would stay here, but you flip the board over. You put the torch wherever it should go. Since it's 4 players, torch goes all the way up at the top, right? And then you're ready to go. Now, the only difference in Act 2 that you get here is taunt. It gives you taunt. So let's go ahead and, actually, now that I set it up, let's go ahead and set taunt. And you notice there's no minions because you have to kill all the minions to get to the main boss. All right. So what this free action is -2, you can taunt the boss, and they will move towards that character, and they move whatever the boss movement is. So this means you can spend 2 focus to taunt the boss to get the boss to chase you. And there's a reason for that, and we'll try to explain that as quick as possible because I just glanced at the time of the video and I know this is taking a bit. All right, so we're going into Act 2. We flip this over, and this is a wicked boss. Remember, if we had played this all the way through, there would be 4 altars. Once you reveal an altar, you actually put an altar token there. There would be 4 altars already out on the map, right? So here is how you read the boss mat, right? And this is considered a room. You can think of it as like the boss room's right there. This is just the entrance, and that's the boss room, right? So this is how you read the boss mat, right? You have the name. This is the Hydra. It has a movement of 2, a defense of 6. Its counter against melee is 4. Counter against missiles is 2. Counter against spells is 1. So you probably want to hit them with spells a lot. And then what you have down here is areas that you get plus things or minus things depending on where your heroes line up. Because remember, this is kind of a boss room, right? And so this means the entrance. The arrow in the light area means the entrance. So if you come in here, you're -2, it looks like on your melee or on your rolls. Oh, that's just all your rolls. That's vicious. All right. So on strength rolls, on agility rolls, and on intellect rolls, you're -2. Whew, that's rough. Hopefully that wasn't loud. But there's some plus things. You get plus movement if you're here. You can go max health and focus if you get all the way over here. Now, right here, this is their enemy action, right? So for his enemy action, he moves 1 space and will attack all heroes in that space -2. That's his bite, right? And then over here, regrowth. So on the enemy die, I should have showed you guys this earlier, but there are a whole bunch of numbers like normal, but instead of 1 and 6, it's replaced with something, right? So you have torch movement down, and then you have this one. What this one means is when they're attacking you, they block all your defense. No matter how much defense you have built up, that means all defense is blocked, and any of their extra attack goes straight against you. So in this case, let's say down here she has a defense of 3, right? And let's say they do the counterattack, and in the counterattack, they rolled this shield. What that means is she has no defense. She takes all that damage that the boss is pushing out in that counterattack, right? Now, the other thing on here is the torch. What this means is you move the torch down 1 on the torch track. And when you're in Act 2, the boss also gets something when that happens. When you're fighting against the boss, this also happens. He gets +2 to his health, right? So the boss would get +2 health if you ever roll a torch. The torch rolls down and he gets a +2. That's crazy dangerous. Now, the other thing that goes on is depending on the amount of heroes you put, I'm gonna have to set this down, but you put all the hearts there and you stack them. This is why I got to put it down. So because we're a 4-player, this boss has 4 hearts, right? And you have to get all 4 of these hearts all the way down to 0. You can divide damage between the 4 different hearts when you get damage. You can put all the damage on 1 heart. That's really up to you when you're attacking the boss. But here's the thing. Your damage cannot go to, here I'm gonna pick this back up and let's use 1 damage token for now. Any damage cannot go to any of these marks with these altar symbols, right? They can't go there until it's covered with one of these altar tokens. How you do that is to get the boss to go to that altar, all right? So let's say I had a 3 damage on him. I could only go 2 on one of the hearts. Only one of the hearts I can move to because that altar's there. Now, how do you get the boss to the altars? Well, if no one is in the boss room and there's an enemy action, the boss automatically goes to the nearest altar. So they just appear at one of the altars, right? Which would put an altar token on there. The other thing it does is it puts the boss, sorry, there's a Misha hair, a dog hair right there. It puts the boss actually out in the dungeon. So if the boss would have gone here, this is for the basic set. You can get meeples for the different bosses, but this is the basic boss symbol. The boss would go right here. This means the boss is running around in the dungeon. That means this would go right there and you can go below 6 damage. You can go 6 damage and below. He's pretty rough. He has 3, I will admit that. All right, so that's one way you can get the boss to go there. The other way is, remember I told you guys, nope, it's on the mat over here. I got to remember where it's at. For free action, you can spend 2 of your focus and you can taunt the boss and they will move 2 steps towards you or whatever their movement is. So his is 2. Another thing to remember with this, for him to come out of the room into the doorway is 1. So if he were to move, if let's say they were to taunt him, he would go 1 to get out of there. It's 1 right there and then 2. He wouldn't go, you don't start right here. This is kind of the boss room. It also gives you information on the boss. So he would move 1 to the door and then 2 out. Now the other thing is, when you're initially fighting the boss, you want to go into the boss lair. Let's say this person wants to go, let's see what their movement is. She has 4. So it's a free action to go to the door, right? And we've opened the door and all that stuff, but it's a free action to go to the door. And then you could do free actions at any point. It doesn't disrupt movement. So there's 1 free action to go there. Then she has 1, 2, 3, 4. She might not want to go there because there's negative. So she might stop right there. Now, why wouldn't you might not want all heroes in with the boss, because when the boss attacks, right, when they're in their room, they only attack, I'm sorry, you guys can't see that very well, but when they're in their room, they only attack the hero that's in their room, right? So right now, the Hydra would attack, it only hits her. It wouldn't hit anybody outside of the room. Now, the other thing that to keep in mind is, let's say you guys are out here trying to move the boss around, right? When the boss token is out here on the board, either you taunted it or there was a heroic and enemy action that caused it to come out. When the boss is out here, when they attack, they will hit anybody that's in that room. So let's say the boss comes out. Let's say we've gotten him there, right? Let's do some hearts, throw some hearts on there to show that we're doing things, right? Well, I'll just throw those 2 for now so you guys can see. The boss comes out. Now the boss is in the dungeon and you attack him like any other minion, right? The boss, you can hit him with range. In here, you can hit with range. You can hit with melee. You can hit with spell. Out here, you would have to be in the room with them for melee or her, whoever you're fighting. But spell depends on your range on your spell, and your missiles depends on your range on your missiles. All right. So when the boss is out here, if the boss happens to come here because of an action and they attack, they're going to hit everybody in there with their attacks. Remember, I showed you guys that shows everybody. They move and attack when they get an enemy action, right? Now, the other thing to keep in mind is, let's say we got some heroes in here. They're goofing off. They want to take this boss out, right? So we'll go like this. Let's say this isn't here. We got some heroes in there fighting. And we have some goblins that were being very bad, and they've been out running around. So these two goblins have been out running around. Because of movement, goblins will also move in here. They can move into the boss room. What happens with that is they're just like the boss within melee, range, and spell of any of them, and they can attack you too. And once you leave, even if the boss leaves, the goblins will leave on their own and run through here. Remember, this is a room, right? And this represents the actual boss. I guess you can set it in there if it makes you feel better, but I feel like it covers up the art. So goblins can actually go in that room too and fight you. It can become a mess. I'm not an expert at this yet, but I found that it's usually good to have 1 or 2 people in here fighting the boss, other people out here trying to keep goblins down. And so you go ahead and you would run through, let's move this down here so I can talk about it. You run through here, let's pretend we have enough altars out here in the map. Once you have gotten the boss to go to all these different altars, right, and you've gotten all 4 of their hearts down to 0, then you win the game, right? And that's how you win the game. And that is the basic, I know it's a lot, but that's the basic run through of how to play Tiny Epic Dungeons, right, from Gamelyn Games. I hope that made sense. I try to make it as fast as possible. I hope it's helpful to you guys. My name's Steven with Cardboard Coalition. See you later, everybody. Bye.